We laugh. We cry. We learn. But really, what doesn't kill you makes you better at managing clients and everyone. I'm Morgan Friedman, and this is Client Horror Stories.
Hey everyone, welcome to the latest episode of Client Horror Stories. I'm excited to have with me the one and only Derrick Van Mell. How are you doing today, Derrick?
I'm doing great, Morgan. Great to see you again.
Same here. I enjoyed our Get to Know You call a few weeks ago, and I'm excited to hear the full story now. Let's jump in. I have my coffee in hand. Tell all of us about your most challenging client horror story.
All right. Well, it was some time ago, but I remember it like it was yesterday. So I had been a general management consultant doing planning and major project management, that kind of thing. And there had been this business, still is in business in my community, a large manufacturer, 100-year-old business that I'd always wanted as a client. And people thought a lot of them, and they had great reputation. I got the call from them, could you please come in and make a proposal? We're going to do some planning work. We'd love to have you submit a proposal. So I knocked myself out to write this proposal. And now my ancestors, German immigrants, had a small manufacturing company in the Midwest. And I still had their brochure from 100 years ago.
Wow.
Yeah, I took a shot of that, put that in my proposal. And I also had inherited from my great grand uncle, who was part of that business, his drafting set of handcrafted, high quality dividers and compass and that kind of thing. I have it in the case behind me. So I brought that when I made my interview, and they loved it, and we just got along great right from the beginning. So I got that assignment, and I was so amped up. So the way I usually start my planning work is what I call question discovery. Some people call it question storming. It's just going around the table. What are all the big questions you have about your business, by marketing and operations and finance and so forth?
By the way, a fun interruption. I have my own version of that, which is whenever a client hires me, in the first meeting after they pay the first part and we officially get started, I always say to them, okay, now that I'm officially on your side, tell me all the dirty things about what's happening that you didn't want to tell me before I started. I say it in almost exactly those words, because every single company has dirty stuff and they never want to tell it to you before you start, but it's critical to know, okay, what's right. The real story. So that is sort of my version of the same.
Well, that's wise, and actually, that's an idea I could have used when I get to the middle of my story. But getting all the questions on the table is a way for me to get a feel for who's participating, who's not, what are the issues, what are they not talking about. So it's a way politely to get everything on the table. So you've been in this scene. This is
by the way, we got it. We got a great lesson from the story. We can end the podcast now and go home.
Yeah, that's right. Well, there's a little more to it.
Before it even starts.
So I'm in this big boardroom. It's very fancy. This company does really well. So a big table, beautiful furniture, great view out the window. Furniture is cool. They've got pictures of their products on the wall. The chairs are ergonomic and beautiful. They've got all the technology. So I'm set up for success. So as we're doing these questions, one of the questions I always ask everybody, you have some questions, is tell me about what information you use to see how you're doing. And also,
I like that question.
Yeah. That's also, of course, a really good way to get to know what kind of people are these. So you've worked with manufacturers. So these are very pragmatic, practical-minded people who want to get the job done, get the product out the door, all kinds of very, very practical people.
I just want to say, I think I'm going to steal your question, because I think I never thought of asking what information do you use to know what's happening, because you're totally right. That question, not only do you get the answer to that, it really reveals to you, okay, are these numbers-oriented people? Do these people even track at all? Far too many companies don't just use their sense of smell for everything. I love it.
Well, and this is a quick quickly growing company. And every time you sort of grow a step, whether that's from 5 people to
Yes.
50 to 500 to
Yes.
whatever, how you use information changes. Well, anyway,
Yes.
I'm always probing though about how they use information and also financial literacy. I've got in the shelf behind me a book called The Knack about how important it is to really understand gross margin, and all the owners, executives really need to understand it. So what I learned was they didn't really look at their financial statements. So I knew enough to not push too hard, but that was a question mark in my head. Now, I happen to be serving on a board with their chief financial officer, really competent guy. And so I caught him out a couple of weeks later. I said, what did I understand that right? They're really just looking at their production schedule. Can we get our products out the door on time? Right. And he said, you're absolutely right, Derrick. I've been banging on the door to get everybody to look at their financial statements, particularly because we're growing so fast. This is a capital intensive business.
Right.
You gotta look at your numbers. Of course, you don't really need to explain it. Okay. So I didn't push too hard. And, we're going to the next sort of series of meetings. I'm meeting with small groups. And I'm in one of their small conference room, also just as nice as the big conference room. And I raised this point. I said, I really want to talk to you about how important it is that particularly the owners really understand these financial statements and read them every month. Even if they don't change a lot, you still need to do it, right? And I've never yelled at anybody in my life, I don't think. I don't use bad language. I'm not one of those pound the table kind of guys. I know I'm not. Now, I might have, and you probably relate to this concept, I might have put on my daddy voice a little bit. Just take that seriousness. Now, Morgan, I've asked you before. This is really important, right? You know that daddy voice.
Totally.
So I may have put that on a little bit. Now, part of the story I left out was we're doing the kickoff. These folks, mostly men, some women. These are guys who run a manufacturing business, right? They're not overly polite or patient, or these are tough people. And they said to me just that. We're tough people, Derrick. We hired you. We want you to just tell us what you really think. We're tough. We can take it. Aha. Little did I know what that really means is we're not tough. We're so scared of the facts. Please don't frighten us. But I didn't know that at the time.
Okay, let's dive into that a bit.
Yeah.
Interesting, and I'm excited for what's going to happen. So I found this same pattern that often the way people present themselves is kind of like the extreme opposite of what they're. So this interesting example of that, of people presenting themselves as, I can handle anything. Okay, you can handle anything. Let me give it to you. Oh my God, why are you so direct? This is so hurtful and not nice.
Yeah.
Like
exactly.
And I also just want to add that self-awareness is so important and like surprisingly hard to come by.
Well, it's the great adventure of life. It's knowing yourself.
Yes,
and
exactly.
these guys have worked so hard. They've thrown their lives into this business, still are to this day, and the company is doing well, I should say. So they identify with their organization, and they you get any group of people together and you leave them alone in a room long enough, they're going to start thinking we're pretty great. Now, I'm not criticizing these guys. I'm just making an observation of human nature and being an advice giver that applies to me, applies to you, applies to everybody. I didn't know it, but I learned it the hard way. So anyway, they told me, we're tough. You can tell us anything.
So by the way, on your point that when you put a group of people together in a room, they tell each other how great they are. That's actually a relevant and subtle but important point as well. And there's this classic study. I think I first read about it in the Freakonomics book 20 years ago, if I remember correctly, about how juries get more extreme over time. And it's the same sort of principle. You have 9 people in a room just discussing the same things, and and 8 of the 9 on the same side. As the 8 of the 9 listen to themselves over and over and over, they make themselves believe more strongly in the issue than than they did at first. And the most important example of this is in the polarization of politics.
Sure.
If super rightists only talk to other super rightists, and they'll just they're just in this echo chamber where they make themselves more extreme. And if super leftists only talk to super leftists, they're in their own echo chamber, and thus polarization gets worse over time.
Well, that's right. And of course, that's not happening in the United States, of course.
No, of course not. Theoretically speaking.
Theoretically speaking. Right. But it's human nature. It's a defense mechanism. We form groups. And so I'm learning to probe. Tell me about your outside peers that you talk to. What groups are you in that get you out of your own echo chamber? Anyway,
Exactly.
So we're back to the second scene in this story is I'm in the small conference room. We're talking on a bunch of topics. And I raise this point, and I think that I put my daddy voice on a little bit. I'm just simply not going to tell anybody they're stupid or ignorant well, one of these guys is in the room and he stands up, he explodes, and he says, "I've never been so angry in my life." And he storms out of the room.
At you.
At me.
For trying to get him to read the financial statement.
Yeah. And I was arguing with him, I think, constructively.
Yeah.
So we don't need to do that. I said, well, but everybody does. It's a best practice. This is universally true. This is why we create them. Arguments are obvious. I was stunned. I mean, panicked, really. What? And I turned to the other folks in the room. I said, what did I say? I don't understand. Why did he react this way? And they didn't say anything. Sort of maybe being a little protective. It's a dynamic that, so probably it's taken me a long time to figure out. So now where do I go with this assignment that I had killed myself to get and was so excited to be involved in? What do I do? And a couple of days go by, I call the president. So here's what happened. I'll be honest with you, I don't really understand what this fellow was so upset about. He said, well, Derrick, we need to have a meeting and clear the air about this. Okay, that sounds good. Now, a couple of days go by to have that meeting back in that same big conference room. Now, I'm not sleeping, right? Because I feel terrible that I've upset somebody so much. I'm also confused because I don't really know why.
By the way, I just want to add in a new lesson. I have a goal in these podcasts of every episode. I try to get in at least one new lesson that's never been said before. And I just realized one based on what you said, which is this guy extremely overreacted to something small. And objectively, hey, you should read, no matter how strong you were, no matter how intense your daddy voice was, you're saying read the financial statements. You're not saying you're a stupid idiot. So clearly it was an overreaction. And what I just realized now is that a huge red flag in any case is disproportionate reactions. When people get super, super angry over something that by a long shot doesn't deserve that anger, then we don't know why he's doing that, but that something is up.
Right. Yeah. And I, just to skip way ahead, my conclusion among many lessons was I was right, but he had a view that this organization it was perfect, the best, hyper competitive people, and I punctured that a little bit, and that just couldn't tolerate that. So I mean, I felt bad for him too, because I could see that. I mean, when someone reacts like that, they're suffering, they have pain.
Yes.
So anyway, I have to have this meeting, and I'm losing sleep. I'm a pretty even-tempered guy, but oh my gosh, what did I do? And I called a friend of mine, very experienced CEO, and I explained the situation. And he said, here's what you do, Derrick, is you listen. And then when you're done, because there isn't a problem to solve, just simply ask, I'm really sorry. And then ask, what would you like me to do? And it was quiet in the room. So what these guys, they wanted to be heard. They also...
So your CEO mentor friend advised you to that, and then you followed his advice and did that. By the way, I just want to observe, I like your CEO friend because I'd never quite thought about dealing with this situation like that just by quick apology converted to action. Because What would you like? I'm sorry, quick apology. And then what would you like me to do is really interesting because it says, okay, I'm sorry. Let's not worry about the details. Focus on the future. Move ahead. How do we solve the problem? Which is very much a healthy attitude, and it changes the mindset from this emotional of being offended situation to okay, let's get to our hands dirty and figure out next steps.
Yeah. And it's also when you're in a situation where people are upset and it's not rational, it's just purely emotional.
Yes.
You can't discuss it, right? You can't reason your way through it. So what you do is you listen, sympathize, and then you apologize a tone, even if it's not necessary, really, and then give them control because that's what they want. They want control. What would you like me to do? And I could tell the temperature in the room, except for this fellow, it came way down. So I would like to say that was a successful resolution to the issue, but it wasn't.
Ooh.
Yeah. So, I followed up, of course, with the president and said, I'd like to continue. And he said, this fella is still upset. I said, well, okay, but I don't know what I did. I don't know what I could do. He said, I don't know if we can work with you because this guy is so upset. Again, without explanation for me. So what I did was I actually turned to that same fella and
wait.
I'm sorry.
I'm excited to hear when you turn to him and what happened, but so we're building up to the climax of the story. So I'm very excited. As we climb up the mountain, as a quick pause for a water break on the mountainside, I want to observe. I'm 49 now, and one of the surprising things about adulthood and business is how often you don't know what's really happening or the reason why other people feel things. Me at 20, I would have been like, of course, even if they don't tell you, you can figure it out. I'm smart. I can know what's happening, but it turns out no matter how smart you are and no matter how well informed you are, it's just like, why are they doing that? What's really happening over and over and over again? So this is actually hitting on complex and subtle point of both adulthood and the business world.
That's right. And giving anybody advice, my oldest brother, who I was just with, who'd been a consultant at very, very high level, one of the big four, he said his motto was, 1, try not to have any opinions. 2, if you have to have an opinion, keep it to yourself. And 3, if you can't keep it to yourself, get ready to apologize. And anyway, to my story. So when I said I'm turning to the fella, I didn't mean the guy who was upset. I meant to the CEO friend.
The CEO. Got it.
Yeah. And so I said, the only thing we can do here is you need to replace me in this assignment. And which he did for a while. And then after a little more time, they replaced him with a third.
They replaced your replacement, or they replaced the CEO?
They replaced my replacement.
They replaced the replacement. Got it.
So they went to the third person who did a good job. They were happy with his work. And so my CEO friend who stepped in for me, and that cost me a lot of money, I'll mention. He had good rapport with all these guys. And so he would just tell me informally what was going on and keep me up to date and how things were going. But they were, so to your point, Morgan, there were things happening in the background, which I had no idea about. I still don't know some of them, some dynamics about who's going to be in charge, promotion, succession, those kinds of things. I think I never would know, and they would never tell anybody. Maybe they would never even realize themselves. So ultimately, they had a third guy, really smart guy, great consultant, who used the material that we generated, all those questions, among other things.
Yes.
And created a somewhat different version, and they really liked it. And the company has been very successful. So, but that was a long time ago, this whole episode. But, as you react to it, lots of lessons there.
Okay, lots of lessons. But before the lessons, it sounds like you never found out why this guy wildly overreacted, but I'd love to hear your best analysis. Like, what do you think was actually happening to cause this breakdown?
Yeah, well, I kind of hinted at it a little bit earlier. This is a very close-knit group, and they felt this is I'm just speculating, right? they had a high opinion of themselves. They deserved it. They're an excellent company, very successful, profitable, growing. And hearing that they weren't perfect was just devastating to this person. And maybe I caught him at a bad time. I don't know. Maybe there were things happening in his life I don't know about. Other dynamics in the firm I don't know about. So understanding how they see themselves is so important. That's true for any relationship for anybody. But that's ultimately, I think, that maybe they wanted me to validate all that they were doing. Lots of consultants are hired to do that.
So question. So what you're saying is you didn't want to hear he wasn't perfect. But if I understand correctly, you weren't saying he wasn't perfect. You were just saying, dude, look at the numbers. So my, again, knowing only what you've told me now, my instinct would have been like, he's hiding someone because, hey, let's look, you're doing so great. This is amazing. We're all happy now. Let's look at the numbers to see how great we're doing. Doesn't seem like I'm implying he's not perfect. On the other hand, if there's some dirty stuff happening that I don't want anyone else to know about, and then this outside consultant is like, open the books, transparency, I'm like I would get very, very, very angry because I wouldn't want the dirtiness to be uncovered.
Well, it's perfectly reasonable you think that, but I really don't think that was the case. I don't think they were hiding anything.
In that case, they are probably really nice, good people. And like, I'm being dark, cynical, expecting the worst. So I'm very happy that my interpretation is likely wrong.
Yeah, no, these are very good people as a company and as individuals, huge donors in the community, huge volunteers, just do great stuff. And very proud of having a 100-year legacy. And they really lived up to it. So, they treat their employees really well. So no, I don't think there's hiding something. Now, I have been in that situation where they were hiding things. And I'm the guy who asked the question about, well, where did this money go exactly? And that's different. I've been threatened and yelled at for asking, like, these two numbers don't add up.
Don't match.
So I know that one. And I've seen real bad behavior, but that's not what this was. And maybe it's why this story has meant so much to me, that it taught me so much about dealing with people who are good people, happy people, successful people, and how they see themselves. And my role as advisor, I hope I've tried to generalize that in all my interactions with people, professionally, personally. But I don't think I'll ever know really the root causes of the catastrophe that I lived through.
Oh, yeah. So I think one part of growing up is learning you'll often just never know the root cause. And this is a case. I also really like your assumption that they're good people, because when people are acting crazy or irrational against you, it's too easy. What I said before was too easy. No, they're like bad people hiding something. But when we assume they are good, then it's like, okay, what is really happening? It could be from a million things happening in his life, or not even necessarily. We can come up with some other possible backstories. There are some people that I've been thrown in work situations to work with where such person and I really, really, really did not get along. And often they're like competent, good people. So it's not like, no, there's this terrible person I work with. It's like, dude, this person is having great success, a really good manager. He's like not doing anything assholeish, but some people's energies are just so wildly different than yours. Like,
that's right.
For example, I've seen work relationship breakdowns among colleagues I've worked with. We're really good, competent people, but like this one happened to be really, really direct, and that one happened to be really, really euphemistic and soft and suave, and like World War III between them, even though they're both like good, kind, competent people that you would want your team. So and this sort of energy people have in a sort of weirdly spiritual way just radiates, and you can sense it. So it could just be for whatever reason, like your guys' energies just rubbed each other the wrong way, which means at some point it would explode over some stupid little thing.
Yeah. Well, that's absolutely true. And but one lesson I learned in reflecting on the story from a Zen master. He was telling the story how one of his students had stormed out of the monastery, was all upset. This is all a hoax. This is all BS. Da da da. And so the Zen master, it's a true story, calls this guy up and doesn't ask the probing question or let's explore the issues. All he asks is, "What's going on?" Sounds, like he didn't put any effort in, but actually he'd put in about 30 years of effort into knowing that you don't know. If you frame a question with any kind of assumption behind it, you're not going to solve the problem. You're going to make it worse. So you just show sympathy and listen. So what's going on? And that's what I should have asked. I didn't get a chance to really, but when I see people start to get upset, I'll say, what's going on here? And let them tell you in their own way and not to be in a hurry. That's also a lesson it's taken me a lot of years to learn is when you're dealing with very pragmatic people going through a rational planning process, it has its own schedule because of the people, and you have to give people time to adjust to the ideas. You have to ask the questions. How are you guys doing? Feeling comfortable? Where are you uncomfortable? Those kinds of things.
I love those points on the Zen master story. I'm not a Zen master, but what's interesting is I've independently come to basically the same sort of conclusions and approaches. So now, when people get angry at me, I have a few different strategies, all of which kind of boil down to that same point, which is I'm often like, "You look like you need a hug."
Yeah.
Yeah, and as soon as you do that, it like defuses all tension, and it also changes the conversation and leads very naturally to, okay, so what's going on in your life again?
Yeah.
um,
Right.
yeah, and what I also like doing is when people are also very emotional, just giving space, time, and then coming back with a completely different topic of conversation in
Hmm.
order to like hey, what's up, hey, let's go have a drink, let's talk about how you're doing, changing the physical venue, the physical context,
Yeah.
and just the, hey, how are you doing, even in this lighter way, like it was like maybe what I'm trying to say is you can take this in a deep way, you can take this conversation in a deep way, or this conversation in a light way. Even in the light way, it's another way to get at it and defuse tension, and
Yeah.
then build up a healthier relationship or a healthier moment in the relationship in a different way.
Right. And you need the time and how many conflicts could have been avoided if everybody just took one slow, deep breath, right? A little bit of time. And a lot of the conversation in the management world, of course, is about conflict resolution or dealing with difficult
Yes.
conversations. And there are a whole lot of techniques, and we've shared a few, and that's great. But every situation, every person is different. So I feel, and I've been thinking about this a long time, what are the fundamental principles, the root causes of people getting upset, getting emotional inappropriately? And then what are some of the root principles of dealing with them? And you already named a few. You got to pick your timing, setting, tone of
Yes.
voice, pace. And underneath all of it, I think, is, as you've said, sort of the spiritual question. I want this person to be happy. I can wait a little bit. I want to know what's going on with you. And a lot of people don't get that in their lives, even though they might wear fancy clothes, drive a fancy car, earn a lot of money, work for a big company. Maybe they don't have someone in their lives who's just saying, "How can I help you?" and put someone first. And that's the big challenge. So I went from Zen master to the deep spiritual question. I hope that's okay. But
uh, that's Zen masters are supposed to bring you to the deep spiritual questions.
yes, they are.
So 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 it seems like he did his job.
He
um
helped. Yeah.
this reminds me of a slightly tangential but related point. I'm now finishing up writing my latest book. I'm calling it Meditations on Forgiveness. So I've been thinking a lot about forgiveness, and I just I wrote it. I have this paragraph that's relevant to
Okay.
exactly what you're saying, or at least with a few steps is relevant in my mind.
Uh-huh.
So I'll quote it, which is when I was in high school, I read Zen and the Art of Motorcycle Maintenance.
Sure.
Yeah, classic on like the high school I want to be smart and a hippie canon.
Yeah.
And
And I have it
one
right
line.
here on my shelf. Yeah.
Oh, really?
Perfect. Yeah. Right.
Exactly, Robert Persick.
Yeah.
Exactly. I think it's great that you have it there. You have it right next to the book on gross margin.
They're in different bookshelves, but yeah.
Different. I think it's great that you have the spiritual hippie side and also the business side. You need both ends to unite them.
They do.
So my favorite line that from the book that always stood out for me since I read it a few decades ago was at some point he ponders, how do you draw art perfectly? Oh, it's easy. First, make yourself perfect, and then just draw naturally. And I
Right.
always think that's such a good way of saying it, where the way to do a lot of these things well is to first improve yourself, and then once you've done that, it's actually really easy to do the little details. And in one passage in my book, I take this and I apply this to, I use this as a way to summarize how one aspect of how I manage and how I have difficult conversations.
Hmm.
How do I have difficult conversations? Easy. Spend years and years and years working with people in a way so that they really trust me and they know I'm not going to blow up. They know I have their best interest in mind. They know, like everyone that works with me knows, they can tell me terrible, terrible, terrible news and I'll never get angry. I will
Hmm.
always go into problem solving mode and I be emotional when needed. So I act this way, partially by my personality, but also I always think it's top importance in order to make everyone I work with feel confident that they can open up with me about the difficult subjects. And then after spending years becoming perfect, after spending years making everyone comfortable having difficult conversations with me, then when you have a difficult conversation, just talk naturally.
Right.
Because we've already set the stage and the tone to make it very, very easy and
Right.
natural.
Well, and just talk naturally to be authentic means you're in tune not just with your technique, or generalization or analysis, but you're tuned in to that person at that time and that place, and you understand what your relationship is, and so you can
Yes.
say just the right thing. And I've learned the hard lesson. I wish I'd learned it earlier. When in doubt, shut up and say, "Tell me more." Right?
Yeah, I'm a little bit Jewy, and it's interesting to me to study ancient Jewish texts. And in the
Mm.
Jewish Talmud, which are basically the ancient rabbis commenting on the Old Testament, there's a line that I only learned it fairly recently, maybe a year ago, but I really liked it, fully in 89A. And the line is um, like the following: the whole world exists in the merit of the person who doesn't talk in a moment of conflict.
Hmm.
And I think that's a very powerful way of making one of the comparable points that we're getting at, that we just have this instinct to use your brother's terminology, to have an opinion. And but also this instinct in the difficult conversation to like lash out, to get angry, to criticize.
Mhm.
But it's so powerful to be able to just not say anything and to be quiet, then go into like strategic quiet planning mode to figure out what to do next rather than bursting out.
Mhm.
That literally the Talmud says the whole world exists in the merit of the people that do exactly that.
Well, and the rabbis would know that it's not withdrawing or shutting off or
Yes.
gaslighting, right? You're communicating. Expression Thich Nhat Hanh used was to smile with your eyes. In other words, you're
Smile with your eyes. I like
smile with your
that.
eyes, and that you're engaged, and you let the other person know that you are paying attention to them. And a very powerful thing. This is how Thich Nhat Hanh would deal with conflict in the monastery. buy time. I mean, among many other brilliant things. But they had a little form that they used when two of the monastics maybe had a conflict. You'd write a note, say, I'm sorry that you're in pain. This is what I understand you feel. Let's have tea on Friday and let's to talk about it. So in other words, acknowledge, have time to reflect, let things cool down, but you set a time to resolve things. And usually when people are upset and you give them time, it didn't work in my case, in this story that I told, which is part of what was so upsetting me. But if you have to give people time, and that's sort of the problem of the consulting arrangement sometimes, you're on a deadline, you don't have time. I said, man, we need another week to let these people cool down or to think things through or to get some more information. And when you don't, you really might as well quit. Because until people are engaged, they're ready to be engaged in an issue. So in hindsight, maybe something I could have done is say, let's pause for a week. And I want time to reflect. I'll be happy to meet with you on Friday to hear what you think. So
that is a great strategy and actually a very powerful one. Almost every project in the entire world can wait a week. Literally, no matter what it is. Oh, yeah. Okay, there's small exceptions. If you're supplying the guns for a war that the government is planning on launching next Tuesday, you can't do that. But like a minor number of exceptions aside, like it can wait a week, and that is that's a very powerful strategy.
Yeah. Well, and after some time, some experience, you realize if we don't wait the week, we're going to lose a month. Right. And,
yes. Yes. Agree.
Yeah.
Love it. Great point. If we
Yeah.
don't lose the week now, we will lose a month at some point.
I work with another manufacturer, a global firm, and just a great culture. And the CEO recently promoted a very senior operations guy who I know I was working with, doing some training for. And so he got promoted and now is going to travel a lot more. But the CEO's advice was spend half your time when you go to these our foreign facilities just talking to people. Half your time. Imagine that. Here's a guy, hundreds of thousands of dollars a year in salary, lots of pressure, deadlines, projects, you know the drill. But the CEO said, no, spend about half your time just talking to people. I remember a presentation. It's funny, I was having this conversation this morning with a training group and about communicating a big change. And I remember I sat in a presentation by Keith Wandell, who had been CEO of Harley Davidson, right? And Keith was an engineer by training and tough as nails. He had taken on sort of the corporate communications role. He really led that effort. He said he spent about a third of his time doing that. You can imagine all the things that CEO of a Fortune 500 company could be doing. And so his rule was, if you want to make a change, communicate a change, which is what I was trying to do in this story that I told. Estimate the amount of time you need to communicate your message, double that again, and you'll have just gotten started. And I cannot tell you how many times I have forgotten that, gone too fast, left everybody behind, and then wonder why they're upset. And so I thought hard about timing and pace of these conversations. So
that makes sense. There's a marketing principle that your target needs to be exposed to your brand or your message 8 times before they know it, and at that point you start selling to them. And for internal comms, I think there's a similar pattern that you just need to. You think that you're clear because you sent an email and it's in some Google Doc somewhere. No, you aren't. You need
right.
to like repeat it. If we get the same message in 8 different ways, 8 different times over 8 different weeks, then you'll be starting to get clear.
Then you're just getting started. So
then you're just getting started.
Yeah. So your story reminds me of one. My marketing guy, David, told me when he was getting started in the ad business, he'd worked on a campaign and worked on it with a client, and the client calls him one day, and we have to cancel this campaign. David said, well, we haven't launched it yet. He said, yeah, I'm sick of it already. I've heard this message too many times. David said, but we haven't launched it yet. It's
That's
not the point that
hysterical.
you're tired of it. So leaders have to get used to saying that over and over and over again. So that's also repetition is part of the change process.
100%. And with that, our conversation took a wonderful and surprising turn. A little bit of a spiritual turn, but I think it's great. Why do we exist after all? So
That's right.
So it was great conversation, great getting to know you, some great lessons, at least one new lesson. And thank you for your time, and everyone who's watched it to the end. Thank you for making it this far. We hope
Thank
that you enjoyed it as much as we did.